Everyone knows Steve Harvey as a family man and a dad of many children, both natural and embraced, yet a profoundly protected mysteries taking cover behind the veneer of the apparently wonderful tribe. The things are not that extraordinary as Steve attempted to show his crowd. My children are all here. I'm a delightful spouse. They came here. This truly was a pride. I didn't have a clue about any of them were visiting the area. I truly phrased is on the road that the entertainers, organic kids, are not content with the relational peculiarities, and generally critically with their father picking his stepdaughter or his direct family. And there's even talk that Steve's children plotting against their stepsister Lori, and need to separate their father's primary concerns at the forefront on the grounds that as per them he has lost himself by spinning his life around his valuable Lori. Hey everybody, and welcome back to Celeb Live Divert. In the present video, we will jump into in the background of Steve Harvey's mixed group and figure out why the energy between the relatives are so tense, and in particular, why Lori's kin are staying away from her and wouldn't show up at family gatherings. Renowned comic Steve Harvey has 7 youngsters in All Out. He shares twins Brady and Carly, as well as child Broderick, with his most memorable wife, Marcia Steve. Additionally has son Winton with Hex and second wife, Mary Shackelford. And from that he took on his ongoing wife, Marjorie's youngsters, Morgan, Jason, and Lori. And keeping in mind that all family photographs on Instagram make you sort of desirous in light of this energetic family vibe, in all actuality, there's essentially a fight between Steve's organic children and Lori. And they even say that both Marjorie and Lori maneuver their dad toward getting what they need. So you and your mom concluded that I shouldn't go to not any more damn entertainment ceremony, since Marjorie consented to turn into Steve's better half. The existences of Brady, Carly, Broderick, and Winton have flipped around. Every one of them didn't get an opportunity to appreciate time with their father while they were youthful, in light of the fact that he was in the middle of building his profession. And clearly now that he is rich, affluent, he actually cares very little about getting to know them. And all of his consideration and liberality are committed to the most youthful girl, while his different children are totally disregarded. Contrasted with what Lori gets. No, I don't get that much remittance entirely. It just so happens the pressure between the kin is developing with each new day as different children watch Lori getting all that from father's finished consideration, quality time with him during family suppers, and surprisingly, lavish gifts that every other person can merely fantasize about. Obviously, Horse isn't in any event attempting to conceal his bias, and different children are worn out to be dismissed by their own father, so they chose to mix a few mud and let the world in on what apparent Steve Harvey genuinely is. Only a long time back, Steve gifted his evident most loved 23-year-old stepdaughter another Lamborghini Urus. There was no notice anyway on what present, on the off chance that any his different children got. And it seems like the contention continues to develop with each new present she gets. As per one source, Steve's children are feeling staggeringly envious of Lori, particularly in light of the fact that she was likewise deserted by her genuine father, yet got sufficient love from Steve, who failed to remember that he, at the end of the day, deserted his kids the way that Broderick once conceded during Steve's program. I didn't actually have my father full-time into my life until I was 16. Right, in spite of the way that Lori isn't even connected with Steve, with the exception of on the paper, he clear in a real sense singles her out among his 7 youngsters. And you ought to be visually impaired not to see that. Well, Lori is presently a rising star in the Broadway, yet her genuine accomplishments so far are related with her high-profile connections and rough private life. While this young lady doesn't fret over making her own specific manner on the planet, so she doesn't have to stress over searching for a task or making a vocation. Different children don't get a similar monetary help from their mogul father. And as one insider guaranteed, Steve's cherished spouse Marjorie has something to do with the comic's natural children alienation. And you realize, folks, there's really something in this in light of the fact that Steve possesses had sufficient energy for offering to set things straight with his our children anyway. You can, in any case, see their disdain during the meetings and the sharpness they discuss their young life years. With that, definitely you had those minutes when you're a teen. And you're similar to, well, for what reason isn't he there yet? Evidently, this multitude of family energies that Steve Harvey attempts to teach right now, his different youngsters need to some way or another definitely stand out enough to be noticed, for instance, by uncovering their scorn toward Lori and the ebb and flow relational intricacies. And despite the fact that Steve openly expressed that he was prepared to commit for the errors past, obviously, he didn't adhere to his words. I had consumed my whole time on Earth, attempting to compensate for the slip-ups I made as a young fellow. Yet clearly Steve, in no way wants to reconnecting with his children, and his time and consideration are completely consumed by Marjorie and Lori. This is the group of his fantasies. The two ladies are individuals of note. Both make him incredibly glad with their looks and tastefulness. Both are attempting to be at the center of attention, however much as could reasonably be expected. Many individuals are disheartened in Steve, on the grounds that obviously all that he at any point needed from his life is to have that ideal public picture. As one individual remarked, I have no regard for any man that remarries and disregard his genuine kids, and take up one more man's children as his own, and give that kid everything, and not his own. And another client added, it appears like Steve is purchasing Marjorie and her kids to keep the adoration for Marjorie, yet it's inevitable before everything crumbles to add more fuel to this fire. Here's an as of late re-emerged claim that Steve was more than missing from his kids' lives, yet in addition was savage with some of them. No doubt, folks, on the off chance that you know Steve's crazy separation show with his second wife, Mary, it didn't end just with her getting only open embarrassment, since we have a man of influence and authority, and he involved that in the court. Notwithstanding Steve's endeavor to quiet Mary, she was unable to stay silent and approached for certain serious allegations, uncovering her ex's vicious way of behaving. In one specific occurrence, as per police reports, the jokester had fiercely abused the young man for lying about homework. And after this, his body had all the earmarks of being shrouded in injuries and cuts. Furthermore, the young fellow couldn't involve the bathroom for a really long time in the fallout of his dad's treatment anyway. As it happens, just in the most terrible bad dreams, the antagonist has never been rebuffed. And here's significantly more to tell for posting various recordings about Steve's barbarities on the web, and blaming the entertainer for leaving her destitute, taking her cash, and turning their child against her. She got a gigantic smack on the face as gag request, and there was nothing she could do against it on the grounds that, as per her, Steve paid off everybody. Since I'm no one worth mentioning, you realize his legal counselors came in his group of attorneys and his company. And you know he's a man with the influence. This unquestionably brings up a ton of issues about Steve's personality, and it appears as though there are just two individuals who are blissful about all that what's happening. Marjorie and Lori wash in extravagance, love, and consideration, while every other person is frantically attempting to win an ounce of the humorous love, as Steve himself once conceded his oldest girls, twins Carly and Brandy, in the end let him know that they offered up their battle for his consideration, since it was feudal years. After the fact, they shared with me, Father, we didn't have the foggiest idea why you left us yet. We know now you needed to go. You didn't simply have a place with us, you had a place with the world that was personal for me. Yet as turned out, the quarrel gets consideration is getting genuine again on the grounds that Marjorie and Lori appear to have taken all that the comic's organic children are qualified for. And the saddest piece of the entire story is that Steve is more than content with having just these two as his family, and anything they attempt to pull off, they do it impeccably, having the renowned television have under their impact. We don't utilize the term stepchildren. I never alluded to my most youthful girls, my stepdaughter. She's my girl, she's my child. And much to Lori's disgrace, she partakes in her situation as her new endeavor to correct the connection between the kin and guardians in this mixed tribe. By what it looks, Steve isn't wanting to change either. And this fight is ill-fated to keep going for the vast majority. More years the truth will surface, eventually what precisely Marjorie and Lori were focusing on by detaching these relatives and taking all Steve's consideration and love. And presumably when Steve acknowledges what he missed with his organic messes, with it very well might be past the point of no return for him, as one individual remarked. Might you at some point envision God disallow assuming anything happened to Steve? His genuine blood kids won't get anything that is the reason his significant other ensured he embraced her kids. And another client added she's saving that cash for herself. I bet they're not on his will some of the time. Individuals do this to get to the sack dishonorable of Steve, to do this to his own blood well. It appears as though Marjorie's aims are simply vile, and her main craving is to ensure that Lori will not need to battle in her life. And taking a gander at how indiscriminately Steve reveres both Marjorie and Lori, his momentum wife obviously got what she needed. And what do you figure is this about cash and promising future for Lori? And will Steve's natural children at any point get even one of their father's consideration and love? Share your contemplations remarks underneath. I'm anxious to understand what you're thinking. And meanwhile, check my different recordings about the Harveys. There's a ton of show behind the exterior of wonderful family. Well, folks, that is in support of today. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned, and I respite to be back very soon.